Hi everybody, it's Bonnie Langenfeld with Landscapes and Fabric, and today I'm showing you how to frame your piece so that you can save it if you think it's a problem. And I don't mean framing in the sense of putting a wooden or metal frame on it. I mean actually composition wise, choosing the right areas to focus on in your picture. I didn't dare say composition because I thought it would turn a whole lot of people off. Well, today this fabric from Fabrilish, which has been dyed for me for skies for my beginning landscapes fabric, is my favorites are my favorites. So I just wanted to show this to you and remind you that Gabrielle Bullard does a fabulous job. You can find her at quilt shows all over the place, and especially southern U.S. And I believe she's going to be at Paducah this spring, and you can contact her at fabrilish@gmail.com if you wish to get some specific information. She does not have a website at this point. So to begin the composition part or the framing part, remember this piece. I'm sure you do. You've seen it a lot. Well, when I first did this, I just had this piece on a big piece of fabric, and as we discussed in another video, it wasn't so good. So I redid it, and from what you might have seen last time, I really changed the composition around. I changed it with a lot of different fabrics, and I added a lot of thread painting to make it pop, to make it more realistic, to make it more me rather than just the fabrics laying there. So I wanted to show you this is okay, but putting a frame on it makes a great deal of difference, and in this case it's a mat. Now you don't have to mat and frame your pieces, of course, but this will help you get an idea of what you are going to see, maybe, or where you are going to finish the edges so that you know what you're going to see in your piece, if it's a wall hanging or whatever. So this works just fine at this size and pretty much this mat dimension and so on. That's all pretty good. But I also want to show you that I have another piece here that I did a while ago, and I did it as a sample. And for a sample, it's not so bad. But if I had decided to frame it, I think it's obviously a little wonky. You see how the edges aren't finished, and this is the focal point, but things aren't really rearranged or arranged very well. So here's my idea for you. You can try a ready-made mat, and I often use these when I'm putting my pictures together or composing them, because it helps me know how far off to the right, left, top, bottom I can go, and I don't have to sew a bunch of stuff way off on the side that's going to get covered up by mat. Usually, I do mat and frame my work. But if this isn't enough, if this isn't quite the right size and you feel like this is a very special piece, you can always do this too. You can take the four corners of a mat, cut them off actually, and place them on your picture wherever you think they may work best, or the mat you have made will work the best. See, I like this better without this corner business blank part showing. I like just a little bit of the grasses popping up. And then I'll put the fourth one over here. And I like that better with this tree over here on the side cropped off. I just feel like you're coming into it, you're coming into this little tree, the big tree. You can more or less walk into the piece now, rather than when it was like this. I don't know why this was over here. I guess I just needed to make another tree, but it didn't really work for the composition. All right, so moving on. I wanted to show you, I often work from pictures, and I encourage my students to do the same thing. And this picture is a good one that a student let me have. I'm not sure where she got it, but it's really beautiful. It's got a lot of pretty things in it, but it seems to me that it's just way too busy to do a fabric landscape, especially if you're just starting out. So this might not be a good first choice, or if it is a good first choice, you're certainly going to want to do some editing and make it simpler so that you don't have to try to make, for instance, all these stones or all the plants or all the trees. Here's another version of that in black and white, and that still doesn't really help you with the composition because there's so much stuff going on in here. It's a little bit hard to see what do you want to leave in and what do you want to take out. But remember, making a black and white is often a good way to go to try to see the values in your composition. It's just that this one is so busy, it's hard. There's so much medium value that it's hard to make decisions with it. You could do it, but try to start with maybe a simpler piece, a simpler picture in the first place. Here's another one. This is from Keukenhof Gardens in the Netherlands, which is absolutely gorgeous. And this is very busy also, but what I like about this is this foreground, then the midground, and then the background. And all of these flower beds in here and all these individual flowers in here could certainly be simplified as well. Another thing I like about this is, remember, the rule of thirds is a good thing to go by with your composition plans. So, So this, I think this is sort of the horizon line. That makes it a third. This row of flowers down here makes another line for the thirds. And then to complete our tic-tac-toe board, you see how this is the edge of this flower bed. If we put that there, and then we put it another strip here where these trees are framing it on this side, the significant changes in the piece or the borders right in the piece are on that line, that tic-tac-toe line, that rule of thirds. And that's where you want to put the significant items in your pieces if you possibly can. What else is left here? Oh yes, the black and white of this one. Just to remind you to do that. And then, oh, hi Annie, I see you are watching. Thank you. This piece is great. Look at the rule of thirds here. This is the foreground. This is the horizon line. The tree, whoops, the tree is right there. And this side just doesn't have a rule of thirds partition. But I think it's okay because this tree really begins to be the focal point, and it's on this line, and these lines continue on through the piece, and so your eye has a place to go, which is what the thirds part is about, and dividing up the piece so it's not all just jumbled into one big scrambly thing. I also wanted to show you this piece, which I don't think really works very well, and here's why. Usually when I'm making a piece, I put a mat on it because I often mat and frame my work rather than quilt them and so on. And so what I'm thinking is this, I didn't do this with this one because look, the building is really cut off. This is sort of a focal point, but I don't think that's the most interesting thing. The boat's just sitting here in the middle. If I do my rule of thirds, well, it kind of works. But you see how this focal point is way over here? It doesn't divide the piece neatly into 9 sections. So what I should have done was start with a mat, and I could still save it if I do something more like this. You see how that brings that line of thirds into it? and gives it a place. Then we've still got the horizontal sections. This little part over here now becomes insignificant. And the problem is I didn't plan it well enough, so I'm off the edge over here. So my advice to you always is to use a frame, even if you don't plan to frame it, because it helps you decide on where things should go when you're putting them on your background. This one, hello, this one, let's see how it does with a frame. Ah, I like that. We've got something here, here, here. We've got a focal point here. We've got a focal point here. We've got thirds. I mean, it really works in a lot of ways, and I think this could be a keeper, although, it's just a sample. It's just an idea. So, I love to do window pieces, and I wanted to show you this. If I have this window unframed, you see where I went off the edge or didn't even go off the edge when I was working, but I worked towards the edge and then didn't even do a lot of detail way out here on the edge because I knew I was going to put a mat on it. Now here's your rule of thirds coming into play on the edge of those flowers, on the edge of this window, across the bottom of the window, and across the top of the window. So it pretty much works for thirds, and with a frame on it, a mat on it, it saves the picture. If I left it off this far off to the side, it doesn't look as pleasing to the eye. The other thing is, this window, when it's in that mat, is slightly off center. Slightly. You see how this heavy darkness contrasts with the lightness, and the window is pretty much in the middle, but you could even fudge it a little more and make it a little less in the center, and that helps make it more interesting as well. It helps please your eye and gives your eye a place to look around, a place to rest. Now when I did this one, which I like very much, by the way, this is that printed extravaganza fabric. I do have that on my website, and it's great because you can send a picture or put a picture into your printer, send a sheet of this extravaganza through, and get a very faint picture of your whatever you're choosing for your reflection, and then when you put it in the window, it isn't as vibrant as the rest of the window, and it looks like it's being reflected. Anyway, this one is dead center, and I think it's fine for this particular composition, but I think it would have been a mistake to just use this dead center. So you have to play with it, and you have to use those frames while you're working. One more tip for you. Let me get these out of the way. Here's a little piece I did. In fact, I believe this is one of them that you can download the pattern for free online on my website, www.landscapesandfabric.com, www.landscapesandfabric.com. So when I put a mat on this one, see how it really brings your eye into the most important pieces. Could I do a bigger frame on it? Sure. If it's quite going to fill it up, I'm not sure. But look how you're just kind of lost in that picture now. I feel like it's just too big. It doesn't focus on what I want you to focus on. But if you put this on it, voila, it really brings your eye to where you want it to be. So one of the things that I love to find, and I do use a lot of ready-mades, is this. You see how this particular mat, let me get it this way, is double layered, and all they've done really is they've taped or glued, can you see that? Let me turn it. Some foam core strips onto one mat, stick it onto the other one, and you've got these two beautiful little layers of matting. Well, you can buy that ready-made, but you can also do that yourself. So, look how cool this will be. I'll take these out of the way. Here's my little waterfall. And with a white mat on it, I think it looks kind of blah. And again, notice the waterfall is not dead center. It looks like it at first, but it's not. And I think it's kind of cool to be able to move it around under your mat a little bit and get it to be a more pleasing composition by not being right in the center. Okay, that's fine, but what if you put a green mat on it? I like that even better. And what if we use those little strips I was just talking about? You can either glue them or tape them, and then put the second mat on top. Now you've got your own spacers. Of course, you don't want the spacers to show. And if you look to the side, let's see if I can get an angle for you here. You can see the white mat and the green mat, and it just puts more depth into your picture. Of course, for this sort of thing, you want to be sure to get a frame. If you're going to frame it with a real frame, you want to get one that's kind of like a shadow box, or at least deep enough that it's going to go fit all this in it. That's the other thing too. This method really helps keep the glass that you may have on your frame from sitting right on your fabric, because that can cause moisture problems and can eventually ruin your picture. So be sure that you don't put your glass right on there. So I guess that's it for today, boys and girls. We are just about to put this on Facebook Live, and I'm hoping that you got some good information from this. As always, I check my comments, so shoot me a comment and have me get back. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And also, I'm looking for ideas for another Facebook Live. What else would you like to learn from me? What else can I help you with? And Bonnie Langenfeld's Fabric Art is a good place to go to check out some ideas, and landscapesandfabric.com is my website, and I am on Instagram a little bit, and I just hope to see you around, and I hope that you will find this very helpful and come back again. Second Monday of every month at 12 noon Eastern Time. Bye.